Hi, my name's Kevin McQuillan, and the following pre-recorded conversations are my attempt to make sense of the human experience through the practice of yoga. I hope you enjoy. Okay, welcome. Good morning. It's day 8 of your yoga teacher training. Just let that number sink in. Day 8. It's been quite the week. We've covered some ground. Perhaps you're seeing yourself in new ways. That's been the idea, certainly the intent. That intent will continue to occur as we move into the second week together. We're already halfway. A little over, you could say. A little over halfway. And as mentioned, soon this will be over. And you'll see that in the second week. It'll go by rapidly. And so every day is an opportunity. Every day is an opportunity to confront. We always have that choice, don't we? To confront or avoid. Confront or avoid. And where you confront and where you avoid. It's very interesting. We'll explore that this morning through this conversation. The theme today is the meaning of life. Just something simple. No big deal. Just figuring out the meaning of life. And it seems to me an element to that is exploring the two themes we explored our first day together, our first day. I'm inherently good. That's not true. It's a very interesting concept, I'm inherently good. It's fascinating if you explore it and explore it deeply. If I look at myself, what I've come up with is that I'm not inherently good, which does not mean I don't have intrinsic value. But what I've noticed looking at my life, I'm not inherently good. It takes a lot of effort to be good in this world, a tremendous amount of effort. And that's how people realize and really begin to realize that being good in this world is very difficult. And start to realize, maybe I'm not so inherently good after all. And what you'll start to notice is how that's true, how that shows up in your life. When you're ridden with guilt or shame or encapsulated in fear, arguing with your family, in a job you don't like, when things are pinchy, you're not getting what you want, these are the areas where you start to notice, what are these thoughts? What are these emotions? What are these behaviors? When you're nitpicking somebody almost to death, or giving them the silent treatment, or looking to dominate them in some ways. These are not experiences and behaviors associated with being good. And so, from my position, my perspective, it's very difficult to be good in this world. And we're up against a lot. And that's what you're starting to realize in this program, is that there's a whole mechanism that supports us not being very good in this world. When we move out of scarcity and these kinds of things, survival, it's intense. You ever thought who you'd turn into if somebody, took your shelter from you, took your food from you, took your means of managing and taking care of yourself? You ever thought about that? Who you would turn into then if all your conveniences were gone? You didn't know where your next meal was going to come from? Not too many people on this side of the world really think about that. Don't have to, which is brilliant in a whole host of different ways. But it also can be blinding. It can blind us from what's actually happening and who we can be. And that manifests sometimes when our conveniences are interrupted at whatever, Starbucks, or traffic is longer than usual, and these kinds of things, these inconveniences that come up. And what bubbles up is, some energy. And sometimes it has teeth that wants to bite. And that's the monster you've been exploring during our time together. And it's useful to pay attention You can't really conceive of how good you can be until you can conceive how evil you can be. And that's interesting to look at that. And plenty of people don't want to look at themselves that way, but it's important to look at yourself that way, to see yourself that way, and to source the examples you have in your life when the monster has revealed itself. And the idea, and certainly in this program, is to do that, to pull the monstrous side of you out, and so you can integrate it. So you're that much more sophisticated versus just having one blowout after another blowout, and it's like trying to put the pieces together just to blow it again. That's not a sophisticated approach. Or being so timid and avoidant that nothing bothers you. And pretend that everything's fine, which is absurd. And so what we're attempting to do here in this program is to position yourself where you can really see all the various different angles of yourself, and then embrace, to be honest and to embrace. You, as you, the human that you are, you don't get to escape any of this stuff, that's for sure, none of us do. And so the idea is to no longer avoid, is to confront. And confronting doesn't necessarily mean being aggressive. That's not what this is about. It's like, okay, what do I need to confront? What's here? What's present? What's this? What's this? What's that? What do I appreciate? What do I not appreciate so much? How do I solve the various different problems I have in my life? And there's many. And the only way we can do that is a position of presence. Is one way of putting it. Being aware, being alert. And having as many postures as possible to hold the various different experiences you must hold to be successful. That's the brilliance of yoga. All these shapes we get to play in. Ooh. Practice being strong as well as flexible. I go here, and then I go there. I move my energy here. There's nothing quite like it. There's no practice quite like yoga. It's amazing that way. And so when we become avoidant, that's where things go south quite quickly. You have plenty of examples of that. And it's quite likely there's something in your life that you've been avoiding for quite some time. Saying something, having a conversation, doing something. I could imagine there's something that's been sitting around for a while that you've been avoiding that needs some attention. And so there's consequences, and typically heavy consequences when we avoid. Because the thought is like, I can get away with this until we can't. We don't get away with maybe nothing. There's always consequences attached to what we do. And so up on the board are some distinctions, and specifically where we avoid enacting a lie. That's one discipline or one distinction when it comes to avoiding. We're enacting a lie. You think about last night, what we were speaking about. I felt, I decided. You could consider that to be a lie. That nobody loves me. I'm not enough. It's like if you really pause, it's like, is that really true? Do I not have enough? Am I not enough? People don't care for me? These kinds of things, the things in which we tell ourselves. When we tell ourselves those kinds of things, we're enacting a lie. That's the consideration. And it leaves us encapsulated. Well, it's where we abandon a responsibility. We abandon responsibility. Being responsible for how we think, how we feel, how we behave, the impact we have on others, including ourselves. We just abandon responsibility. Nobody loves me, so then I'll do this. I have no worth, so then I'll do this. And all the justifications to do these kinds of things we know aren't good for us, but we justify them anyways. And it goes something like, I have no worth, so I'm going to eat this bag of Doritos. Because I can get away with it. Somebody doesn't like me, so I'll treat them poorly. Because they did it to me first. And I can get away with it. until we do those things a few times, and then many times, and then the consequences start to add up. It's like, what? I'm no longer in a relationship with people, and I've gained 35 pounds. That's how it can play out over a span of time, which has significant consequences related to our health. We've lost ease, which will manifest into dis-ease at some point. And these are the things in which we'll do as we abandon responsibility. And we are suffering because it promotes suffering. And there's something about the human experience that is just so intrigued by suffering. Isn't it fascinating? The ways in which you will create suffering for yourself. It is so fascinating. It's like, yeah, you deserve this. You deserve this. I'm going to pinch you and squeeze you and starve you and do all sorts of weird things to you. It's a very strange experience. And the benefit of knowing that is like you're not alone in that. We're all doing that in our own unique way. The self-sabotage, the self-torture we can move ourselves into. It's unbelievable. And we're encapsulated in delusion. And once we're encapsulated, we stop seeing ourselves. But people see us. And then people have to make a decision. Come closer to me, or maybe you should stay over there. Once we're encapsulated in delusion, we've lost ourselves. We're in the wobble. Can't really see ourselves, feel ourselves anymore. And typically we're erratic, unpredictable, and others do not like that. We like predictability. Who are you? What am I going to get? Okay, good, you're like that. I can tolerate that. These kinds of things. Once we bounce out of this character, it creates some chaos at times. And to watch out for that. How you torment yourself and lead yourself into behaviors where you're unpredictable. And people get their guards up and don't really know how to handle you. And forced into making very difficult decisions that they have to make. Do I listen? Do I not listen? Do I stay? Do I leave? These kinds of things. Very difficult decisions. The opposite is to confront. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm feeling this, I'm thinking this, what's happening here? Maybe I can confront this experience. Maybe it is true, maybe it's not, but best I investigate it and explore it, break it down. And if it is true, what do I need to do about it? If it's not true, what do I need to do about it? And that's a much more sophisticated approach, where there's truthfulness and adopting the necessary responsibility to manage your space, which is key, fundamental. It's a redemptive act, attempting to redeem ourselves, which is important, and that process seems to never end. A redemptive act, which certainly elicits healing, and that's happening here in this space if you haven't noticed. The things in which you're speaking out loud about, the things you are confronting in this space during our time over the last 8 days is healing. That's what's taking place here. And ideally you notice it. If you don't notice it here, you'll certainly notice it soon when you go home, because people will receive you differently. You're different as a consequence of your efforts here and your healing. You're putting yourself together in a very unique way. And it's because you're completing the past, which is significant effort. And that's what's needed to complete the past. You've got to complete the past. To clean up. To cut off the things that are haunting you and tormenting you and pulling you into the past. The attachment you have to suffering. You've got to cut it off. And stop being the perpetual victim. Because we're attached to it. We get a lot out of being a victim. There's so many payoffs in being a victim in this world, especially these days. And one of them, people do stuff for us. We get to be the victim. It's like, oh, here's some soup, or I'll pay your bills, or I'll come protect you. All these different things. And so there's a significant payout when we adopt victim mentality, when we show up as the victim. We have to do less. That's it. We do less, people do more. You do more because you owe it. I'm owed. And so give it. I've had a hard life, so take it easy on me. If you only knew, it's not the proper position to take in this world. So this practice that you're undertaking elicits healing. It's an enacted truth which becomes embodied. Think about that. Just this walking truth seeker that tells the truth as much as possible. It's an embodied experience. And to understand and know your body that much more, because it is telling the truth consistently, whether you're listening or not. It's like, hey, you're out of line. Ooh, that one's good, stay here. Where our values are. And your values do not lie. They'll tell you every single time when you're aligned to them and when you're not. And that's the benefit of being sensitized in your body. It's an incredible gauge and guide when we're synced into our values. And you'll notice that in your life. Where your values are present, you're thriving. Where they're not, you're being thrashed. And this is how we become more present and have the kind of future that you want. We become more present. It's not easy to confront the things in which we need to confront. I've shared some of my tales along the way. My relationship to truth. Don't tell the truth, it's not safe. What I had to start doing was telling the truth, which was horrifying and very difficult. My relationship to people. You mob, you blob. You're going to hurt me, and so stay away. And so I had to confront that. So I could actually build up enough tolerance so I could start being with people, which was difficult and skin crawling. The ability to get myself into a place where I could be touched, not easy. But noticing, and then like the list goes on and on and on, the endless list of my insufficiencies and flaws. And it's like, okay, yes, here you are. Will I choose you? And what I've noticed in my own experience is when I choose one of my insufficiencies, my flaws, where I'm underdeveloped, I'm better off as a consequence. And that's been true every single time. Because it gives me something to grapple with. It's a problem I know I need to solve, and in that is meaning. That I dub this is meaningful. This is the most meaningful thing that I am going to pursue right now in my life, and I'm going to make it that important. And in that, I have to sacrifice a bunch of things for that to occur. And I'm willing to do that. And I will. And I have. And what's nestled into you solving some of your problems and confronting your insufficiencies is meaning. And you could argue that's the meaning of your life. You could. Quite easily. You choose one thing, everything else becomes less meaningful. And that is significant. You think about that in your career, your relationships, whatever it is. It's like, I choose you over everybody else. That's a hell of a thing. That you're the most meaningful thing. More meaningful than the other 7 billion people on the planet. It's weird. But the weight of those decisions, where you live, your career, all of these different things that you choose, your family, your kids, your friends, how you choose your life. And you're choosing it for a reason, and the idea is that you pay attention to the reason. And is there significant meaning attached to the choices that you're making? And ideally, you can say yes. What you'll notice at times is no. You're doing it out of convenience, or you're doing it because you're avoiding, or you're doing it because you're encapsulated in delusion, or whatever it may be. And that's worth paying attention to. You can ask yourself, what the hell does this have to do with the yoga teacher training? It has everything to do with you teaching yoga if that's the path you take. There's nothing more absurd than stepping into a yoga studio and teaching alignment while your life is an absolute train wreck. Let me teach you about peace and alignment, where I can't even listen, or I can't communicate, or I'm hating on people, and I can complain constantly. And I road raged all the way to the yoga studio to teach you about peace. There's nothing more absurd than that, and it happens often. And so the approach, the methodology is how to put your life together and then teach that through this practice of yoga. It's an interesting world that we live in, especially the yoga world. These practices have meaning if you choose them in a way that manifests meaning in your life. If you're going to teach alignment, best you be aligned. And if you're not, then be truthful about it. And use teaching as a way to create alignment in your life, to pick the problems that you need to pick. Not simply just using it as a mask. You drop into your meditation posture when somebody's trying to talk to you. It's like, what are you doing? Or you start chanting when, I don't know, things become difficult with your loved one and they have no access to you. Or you avoid to run off to your mat, or these kinds of things. It just doesn't work. And so what works is you, if you choose the right meaning. And you know that. You're seeing that here, ideally. And so a question for you. What do you feel you need to choose moving forward? What do you feel you need to choose? Maybe it's something you don't necessarily want to choose. And that's good. Look at it that way. If you already have something, well, you've already chosen it. If you want something potentially to be different, would you have an answer to that question?
To tell the truth without depending or relying on perfectionism or people pleasing to kind of hide or manipulate the truth, but tell the truth, tell my truth.
Fantastic. Tell the truth. Oh, yeah. I just want to say one thing. It's a huge responsibility to take on. It's a fantastic responsibility to take on telling the truth. And it really gives you something to grapple with. And you'll notice the consequences of that action very quickly, which is phenomenal. And I like how you put it, in the absence of strategies to soften the blow or whatever it is. It's like, no, here it is. Here it is. Doesn't mean I'm right. Doesn't mean I'm right. I don't need to be right, but I'm telling this. And to accept the consequences of you telling the truth no matter what they are.
It's just so scary.
It is very scary.
Which is why it's way easier to do it in ways that's like, no, but I still feel kind of protected over here through perfectionism, or like, I'm just going to kind of hide it a little bit with the people pleasing to make it, I see why that makes sense, because the alternative feels so scary, so vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it, right? It's like a huge act of vulnerability. Okay, thank you. Look out, world. Very good. And so today, through practice, choose something that has significance, something that means something to you, and practice it. Because if not, what's waiting for you is this automatic version of you that's waiting, the trap, that you explored deeply last night. Oh, did you ever? Where fear and shame have gripped you, and there's no access to vulnerability. There's nothing good in that posture. There is zero good in that posture. Practice. We're going to move into practice. 5 amazing individuals will stand up in this great act of bravery teaching us. And so prepare yourself this morning to be there, the way in which you want to be there. Practice is the way to negotiate with your future, and that's the attempt. A great pleasure to be with you. what a morning it will be. You ready for this morning, Ashley?
Me?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Haha.
You ask us to every morning.
Okay, we'll see you on the mat. Let us be together, practice together.